there, I'm Sarah Kolis. Welcome to the Dressing Up podcast, where we talk about all things bridal dresses and general dressing up topics. I love to encourage women to dress up while expressing their personal style with confidence on how to do so. Visit sarahkolis.com to book a bridal alterations fitting, or even inquire about designing the custom couture bridal gown of your dreams. I am so excited to talk to you about this next topic. Let's get started. Hello, everybody. Today we have Danielle here with DN Artistry. So tell us a little bit about your business, where you're located, and who you serve.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. So let's see. Where am I located? I am in Genesee County. So I run my makeup artistry side out of a studio in Holly. It's actually being built out right now. So that will be very soon that that's available. I serve, well, a lot of different people. I serve brides mostly throughout Michigan. I also do a little bit of commercial work on the side and a tiny bit of just regular event stuff, which is fun. So I have been a makeup artist for a super long time, for about 12 years, actually. And I would say that in terms of who I serve or what client tends to like my work, it's usually somebody that likes natural makeup, wants to look like their most perfected self, but doesn't necessarily want their makeup to be the star of the show, if that makes sense. I tend to really view makeup as an opportunity to accentuate someone's beauty and not necessarily accentuate like my talent as the artist, as strange as that sounds, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I love that. Well, we are on the Dressing Up podcast after all. So I have to ask this question. What is your favorite item in your closet right now?
So I in my job, I have to wear black. I guess I don't have to. It's not a rule, right? But it is generally easier to deal with in case of spills, which I actually don't think I've ever spilled on myself, but it's like this fear that I'm going to get makeup on something I love.
Yeah.
So I have a pair of black pants that I feel like are just the most flattering pair of pants that I've ever owned. They're like a teensy bit high-waisted. They just kind of suck things in the right way. You know, I feel like $1,000,000 when I wear them.
Oh, just solid. It's all about the fit, right?
100%. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Just a good staple black pant.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, before we jump into the wedding side of things, as that's only natural for both of us, for our non-bridal listeners, what is a general tip you have for women in regards to makeup? Or like, what is a common maybe pet peeve or mistake you see people making in their makeup when you're just out and about in your day and you're like, oh, I really wish people would stop doing that? Anything of that nature?
Yes. So there's two main ones. And I think partially they exist because really since 2016, there's been this just explosion of makeup for social media. And social media makeup is 100% different than real life makeup. And it's even different than bridal makeup, which I don't think people realize. But the two main things that I see are foundation that doesn't match. And it really should match the neck and the chest like almost perfectly. And sometimes people have different tones between face and neck that make a really big difference for the way that it ends up reading when you're just looking at somebody. Yeah. I think that's one of the main things that I see. The other thing that I see that, and I hate to say this because I feel like sometimes it makes me sound a little bit old, but contour is so overused. It's so overdone. I'm sick of seeing it.
Okay. I like hearing these things.
Yeah, I think we forget, that again, social media makeup is different. So with social media, we're filming. Generally, we have a light that's like beaming into the center of our face. It's very, very high light. You lose all contours of the face when you are in that lighting scenario, but we don't live in that lighting scenario. And we're often not photographed in that lighting scenario unless it is specific to beauty makeup. So, adding all this contour and all these shadows to the face can sometimes in real life just look a little bit muddy if it's not done really in a painterly way. And, just being lit by the sun or being lit from overhead light naturally creates those shadows in our face. So it's almost unnecessary. So that's my take. And I think foundation, I'll just kind of jump into a quick tip, I guess.
Yeah.
With foundation, when a layperson, a non-makeup artist, or even a makeup artist is trying to match, I think take a little swatch, pop it on your neck, pop it on the décolleté, because our eyes naturally like when we're looking at somebody, we see those parts of our face, and it really should be seamless between those three. So don't be afraid to really pay attention to here more even than here, on the face. I'm pointing to the face.
Oh, interesting.
It can make a huge difference for sure.
Fabulous. We're going to jump right into brides now. How should a bride best prepare her skin on the skin side of things prior to the wedding?
That's a great question. And I wish more brides thought to ask this, to be honest. So the first thing is have a good, solid routine in place. I can't tell you how many times still after I think I've literally worked on over 1,000 faces at this point, just from my history.
That is crazy. That is
It is
wild.
crazy. Sometimes when I say that word out loud, I'm like, can that be right? I've like actually tried to physically calculate it. I've got to be close if I'm not over. But what is constant is that people are not using either the right things for themselves, they're not using a routine at all, or they just maybe haven't dialed into a brand or a formula or something that they like for them. We're so influenced, and myself too, we're so influenced by what we see on social or online. And, I think that that is valuable and there's a lot of great information out there, but we have to remember that the person that we're hearing this from may have a completely different scenario than what we have going on. So, different skin type, different skin concern. They might live in a different climate. They may have all kinds of things happening or not happening that are completely different than a bride, for example. That
Mhm.
bride really needs to partner with a professional or product specialist that can help them find the things that work specific to them because so much of skin is personal and specific and different depending on who you're talking to, you know?
Right. Okay, now I want to pick your brain because you seem to really
Yeah.
know this topic. How, like, everyone always talks about having a great skincare routine, but how does
Mhm.
the average person go about that? If you don't have one, like, where do you start? Do you just like, I
Yep.
can't imagine you just like pull up ads from Instagram. Like, who do you go to? What do you do?
Mhm. Okay, so the average person, if you're not using anything now, probably the most important thing to really like go after and try to get in line is your moisture barrier. And I think people don't really like kind of know what that is. So ultimately, it's just something protective that our skin naturally has. And often because we've either not cared for the skin or maybe we've over processed a little bit or overused product, it can be a little bit interrupted. And what that's going to look like usually is some redness, some sensitivity, increased breakouts sometimes. Even things like your pore size and fine lines and stuff like that can look more intense when you have a moisture barrier that's been interrupted. So having something solid in terms of like your moisturizer and even a moisturizing serum can go a long way for lots of people that are maybe on the younger side or maybe don't have a ton of skin concerns. Some ingredients to watch out for, if that is what like the direction someone's headed, would be natural moisturizing factors, ceramides, hyaluronic acid, niacinamide for some people. Those are all going to be ingredients that are like super solid, tend to be good for most, and will definitely help strengthen the moisture barrier. If somebody is maybe, I want to say like late 20s is generally when I feel like most people start to actually pay attention.
Yeah.
Some people are more on it and like start doing it earlier, but late 20s is usually when I see it. If they have concerns in place by that point, so maybe they're, breaking out or they're starting to see fine lines or hyperpigmentation or, all the things that you see, that is when you're going to want to really go after some of the heavier hitters for ingredients. So there's 4 ingredients that everybody should have. And I mean, really, those can start at any point, but SPF is honestly, really and truly one of the best ingredients, best things you can use for your skin. If aging, acne, discoloration, if any of that is a concern, SPF needs to be a big part of the day. Retinol at night, vitamin C, or any antioxidant, but vitamin C is the most common. And then just gentle exfoliation that happens 2 to 3 times a week is generally enough. Most people, if you're doing it more than that, you can start to see some interruption in that moisture barrier that we talked about. The last thing, as far as where to go, so if you're just kind of starting out, I worked at Sephora for a very long time. I found it to be a very positive environment. I have seen clients who have had a great experience in places like that. So a lot of product specialists exist in that environment. That's a great place to start. If somebody is maybe kind of wanting a little bit more, we'll call it professional help, like say they're looking for services and stuff, an esthetician, a local esthetician for wherever you live is a great place to start. They tend to have a lot of back pocket knowledge that you may not get at Sephora. So, another good option for sure.
Yeah. Okay. All good things. One last question on skincare for a bride. If you want
Mm-hmm.
to get a facial before your wedding, how do you feel about that? And when
Mm-hmm.
should you do that?
So it depends a little bit on how your skin is. So if you're a person, if you're not a breakouter really, then you could probably do a facial with like high frequency or dermaplaning, something like that in the days leading up to your wedding. That should be fine. If you're a person who is prone to breaking out or has a lot of sensitivity reactions, a little further out, like a week maybe, might be better for you. I will also say though that if you know that you're a breakout person, there are some things I would not suggest. So don't do any crazy like peels and things that induce purging, because then you'll probably purge and you don't want that to be happening. A purge, by the way, is just like a big breakout session.
Okay.
You don't want that happening in the week leading up to your wedding, right?
Oh, yeah.
But high frequency tends to be, and even microcurrent, both tend to be services that they don't tend to induce purging. And what they can often do is kind of like do a mini tightening of the skin and like give it a glow. So it can be a really pretty effect. And then those things coupled with dermaplaning, which sort of like removes that top layer of skin and any hair, peach fuzz, it can just give you the smoothest complexion possible for the day, which is really nice.
Wow. So you have a really nice blank slate to work with when you start doing your side of things. I love that.
Exactly.
Okay, so I'm sure you get a lot of screenshots from Instagram for inspiration, things like that. What is the best way for a bride to communicate her vision for beauty on her wedding day?
That's a really great question. So I really love it when a bride approaches me for service and has already sort of looked through my portfolio and chosen a look that they just love. That is like the makeup artist's dream, right? But if you didn't do that, I think having some options from like Pinterest or social media can be helpful for the artist. The one thing I want to tell people though is that, again, social media makeup is completely different than real life. Often it is applied much more heavily than I would recommend for real life. It is sometimes filtered, sometimes it's heavily edited. And so it's important for folks to realize that unless you want to have to do those things, that heavy editing and the filtering, which you can't do on your actual wedding day, right?
Yeah.
That's a consideration that you need to go in with. So I think being open to the fact that you may not look exactly like a photo, right? You have a different face than the person that you're looking at, probably. Being open to that, I think, is really important. I also think that, the good artists are requesting feedback throughout their preview and their service so that if there's little tweaks that need to be made, ultimately we're here to serve the bride and to help them feel their most beautiful. I don't know of a single artist that's like, nope, we're just going to do what I want. It's really
Yeah.
ultimately about the bride. So if something is going awry or something needs to be tweaked, I think that a bride should feel comfortable sort of sharing that and saying that. And myself, and I know all the other artists, at least in Michigan that I know, are also going to be right on the same page trying to fix whatever.
Gosh, absolutely. It's all about the bride at the end of the day. You could have like some
Exactly.
crazy awesome makeup skills, but it has to be aligned with what the bride wants at the end of the day. So
Exactly.
when a bride is searching, how should they choose the makeup artist and what should you expect from your makeup artist?
Yeah, this is another good one. So what I've heard many, many times actually is that maybe this is just Michigan, I'm not sure, but brides often struggle to find someone. Either they've reached out to, I had actually somebody tell me last week that they reached out to like 12 people and
Oh,
they
wow.
couldn't, none of them, either somebody that didn't respond at all or they weren't available for the date that they wanted. It seems like this year, September 9th is like, it must be 9/9 and that's why, but
Oh,
those special dates, those fill out really fast.
yeah.
So I think start soon, start early for brides. That's probably my biggest piece of advice. People that are in demand often book out really far in advance.
Hmm.
But if a bride is able to find somebody, but they're really not feeling like sure about it, my best piece of advice would be when you're either Googling or you're on Instagram or wherever you're searching, use the words that you want to see. So search if you're a person who likes a more natural makeup look, search natural bridal makeup Michigan or what have you. The people who are out there doing that kind of work are probably tagging their work that way anyways. If
Okay.
if you're a person who likes a more glam or like a heavy beat, like they say, then you're going to want to look for glam artist Michigan or glam artist, wherever you are. I think the last piece of advice that I'll offer is when you've landed on someone and say you're on their page or you're on their website, look at the work that's in what they're showing you. So generally artists are showing the work that they want to do and the work that they're good at, right? I don't know a single person who's out here putting their worst work out.
Yeah.
So if when you look at their work, the type of work that you see is what you envision for yourself, then you know you've landed with somebody that is going to be a good fit for you and you're going to be a good fit for them. If you are, I think sometimes specifically with social, we put our personalities out there too. So sometimes clients can be drawn to a personality of someone, for example, but the work is maybe really not the right fit. And I'll kind of give you an example. Last year, I had a client reach out, super wonderful woman, really, really wanted like high glam work. That's not a type of work that I do. I don't prefer how it photographs, it's just not for me. So I explained that and I was kind about it. And I just said, I think what will happen is neither of us really want the same end result. And I just think it will set both of us up to be unhappy with what we get. And so here, I'd like to recommend these other people.
Mm-hmm.
Well, again, because my personality is out there, sometimes that's what draws people.
Mm-hmm.
And so she kept coming back to me. It was like 3 different times. And I kept saying, like, you really don't want what I'm offering. And I hate to say that because I don't want to turn a client away ever.
I love your honesty. It's so
good.
But
It's just, I think because maybe I've been doing this long enough, I recognize that it's wonderful to have a good connection with people. And I love that aspect of the job. But ultimately, the work that we want to do is the work that we want to do. And we can't be a different person or a different artist than we are. We just are who we are,
Right.
So I just try to live in that.
Yeah. Gosh, I love it. I love everything. So what ended up happening with this bride?
Well, I believe that she ended up going with one of the artists that I recommended.
Okay, good.
Who is a heavier glam artist, like
Yeah.
she does that fuller beat. I actually did not hear, I have not seen wedding photos or anything like that to know if she was happy about it. But I knew that we just were not going to be a great fit for the work side. And,
I love that. Like being in the creative industry, I feel that too. If somebody asks me to do something that's not quite in my scope of work, I will definitely recommend someone else too. And I feel like that's just part of being in the creative industry, that we like help each other. We all want everyone to be happy at the end of the day. And I like 100%. To focus on what I'm good at and, vice versa with the bride and with, all these things. Oh, I love it. So good.
Yeah.
So good.
I just think too, there's so much work to go around. Like Michigan has, I think 50,000 weddings a year or something like that, and whoa. I know there aren't 50,000 makeup artists in Michigan. There's a lot of us, but there's not 50,000. So the way I look at it is like, there's more than enough to go around. I have more than enough. I can share it. Like I don't need to hoard it,
Such a good attitude. And then at the end of the day, you end up doing the weddings that you enjoy doing, like all of them. So that's awesome. Okay, let's talk timeline. Timeline for beauty, day of the wedding. How much time should we allow? How does all that work?
Okay, so day of. So here's the thing. It's going to probably be a tiny bit different depending on what artist you're working with. But whatever they tell you for how long they need, you should believe them. So personally for myself, my best work is right around an hour. For brides, I'll often kind of budget an extra 15 minutes in case of like anything, any snafus, anything weird going on. For regular bridesmaid stuff, I'd say like an hour, each. There are artists who take longer than that. There are artists who are faster than that. My best recommendation is to ask right away about how long they're going to need, because if you're working with a planner, you're obviously probably having a photographer. You want to make sure all those timelines mesh. And really and truly, some of the best artists already have a relationship either with your planner or are willing to build one, because that's a partnership that needs to be in place to have a good, stress-free, like calm, beautiful day, right? Those things need to be in place.
Yes.
Yeah. As far as timeline, like leading up to the wedding, like I said, you want to try to find your artist, specifically if you have a person in mind already that you feel really sort of attached to the outcome of having them with you. I would say 12 months, maybe even 18 months if their books are open at that point. Secure them early. Mm-hmm. If you're unsure or if you haven't found someone or you're just not really sure where to look, again, speak to your planner. Planners, all of the good ones that I know, have a trusted list of folks that they've worked with regularly and can sort of also speak to the style differences that exist between us artists so that the client can get what they want.
Yeah.
So look early for your person. Your preview is just that. It's a preview of what you're going to get in the bridal day. So instead of looking at it like a trial, I tell people, look at it like a preview. So you should be sure about the person that you've chosen for artistry prior to getting into their chair for the first time even. So that might look like, for me, what I do is I have a discovery call when somebody inquires, and we talk through, first of all, if we're going to be a good fit. If we both say, yes, we're going to be a good fit, then we talk through the vision for beauty for the day. So I can make sure that that's, again, something that I can match, the energy is right. So assuming all of those things are in place, by the time I've actually gotten them in my chair, we've had more than one conversation most of the time, so we feel sure about each other. If you're a person who maybe you're a very unsure bride, that's okay. That exists. If you anticipate needing to have a trial, for example, like you're really unsure, I would say do that well in advance of what I would call a preview. Normally, previews are like 4 to 6 weeks out.
Okay.
If it's a trial, then you probably do want to do it about a year in advance, because if it doesn't work and you don't like it and you feel like you want to find a new person, the availability starts to really diminish the closer to the wedding you get. So give yourself that flexibility. Yeah, I think that's, in terms of timeline, that's most of the things that I tell people to sort of think about.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about natural makeup and what that is, and like what would be the differences between natural versus neutral. What are all your thoughts? Because you seem to be an expert in the natural makeup scene, right?
I've got thoughts for sure.
Okay.
So first of all, neutral is just a color scheme, really. It's some level of brown or gray, right? So it neutral can be done in, like, that neutral palette can be done in natural makeup. It can also be done in what I would call high glam or heavy bead, whatever you want to call it. So that's just a color selection. Natural makeup reads differently on camera. It feels different in person, and it is for a really specific subset of brides, right? So what I feel like is there are brides who really want the makeup to like take them to a completely different destination in terms of what they look like day to day, right? And that's totally cool. Like that exists. There are artists for that. Natural makeup is going to take what you look like on a day-to-day basis, and you will still look like yourself, but you will look like your most perfected you. So I find, again, that brides that like that and that are seeking me are brides that use those words. They want to feel effortless. They want to look timeless. They still want to feel like themselves. They don't want they don't want to be distracted by their makeup at all. They just want it to look really super beautiful and let their beauty be the star of the show. And that's really how I describe natural makeup more than anything else. I do want to make a note too that those two styles of makeup, so the high glam versus natural, they photograph differently. So high glam is going to tend to be something that you really notice in your photos. So it does stand out. And that, again, is for a specific bride, right? Natural makeup, you're not going to look at a photo and say, oh, like that eyeshadow is beautiful, or oh, that contour or that bronzer, oh, so beautiful, right? What you notice instead is, my God, that bride looks so stunning. You are able to notice just the beauty and the joy of the day, and nothing really stands out as a distractor.
Wow. Yes. So good. Okay. What would be an example of maybe a common mistake you see for brides in regards to their makeup on their wedding day?
So I think the main thing, it kind of, again, goes back to what I said for like what I noticed for makeup issues that I see in person. Foundation isn't the right color, contour is overdone. That can become very apparent in certain lighting scenarios for photography specifically. And especially with contour, sometimes people want to do a bunch of contouring under the neckline. And I get it. Like, none of us has a double chin, right? I have one. I hate it. But the contour doesn't take that away. All it does is now it's put color where, a shadow where you have that thing. So if you're getting shots that like catch those angles, I guess, sometimes you will now notice the makeup there. And personally, it's just not like a thing for me. I don't love that. Foundation matches, again, are super, super important, that they match down into the neck and the décolleté. And, I think shine is another big thing to consider, because sometimes in higher light situations, like outdoor sort of things, you'll notice shine reflectivity in photos, and people often don't want that. So if I have a bride who is like really wants to stay perfected and really wants things to be able to be photographed beautifully for the entire night, I often encourage her to book touch-up time, because then we can manage for shine through the entire evening. I can make sure the lip is perfect. She can eat and not have to stress about it for lipsticks wearing off, things like that.
Okay.
Yeah, those are probably the main things that I I think people should sort of watch out for. Makeup that's prepped the right way will last beautifully through the evening, but almost everyone, except the very, very dry, can sometimes get a little bit of shine throughout the night.
Gotcha. Okay. So when you're talking about the shine too, you're talking about like highlight, right? Like a
Well,
little shimmer. What do you
sometimes.
think? Yeah.
Sometimes. So highlight tends to, like, how I use highlight is I pop it
Uh,
on the high points of the face. So anywhere highlight is going to be something that draws the eye always. It's kind of like a banner that says, "Hey, look here," right?
mhm.
So I don't often put highlight on the end of the nose because most of the folks that I run into are not trying to have the end of their nose be the like thing that's
That
grabbing
makes
the
sense.
eye, I guess. Yeah. The other thing I think too is what I see a lot is people put like very, very high shimmer stuff on the décolleté, and then they might have a slightly more matte complexion. And sometimes those two things compete with each other, and that highlight on the chest can sort of read like sweat a tiny bit, which is
Oh, yeah.
usually not my goal.
Yeah.
Sometimes, not always. It depends on the lighting again.
Okay. Yeah. Mhm.
Also, with highlight on the chest, if it's very, very different than the complexion, either in the reflectivity or even in the tone, it can actually make the foundation color look wrong. So
Ooh,
it
yes.
is something to kind of consider, right? Like you can easily contour this space and like hit highlight on the, what do you call these, the collarbones, without it being a distractor again. Like it can still be there.
Oh my gosh. Well, this has been so much fun. I love being able to pick your brain. You obviously have it sounds like you think about these topics a lot because you have a lot of knowledge on it. And this was great. So, how can our listeners find you? What is your Instagram handle, your website, all those things?
Oh, thanks for asking. So my website is dnartistry.com. And then, of course, I'm on Instagram like everyone else. So it's DN_artistry. And I still do have some things open for 2023. So if we've got any panicking brides trying to find somebody, please
Yeah.
come find me. I would love to talk.
Awesome. Oh, sounds so good. Well, thank you so much, Danielle. I appreciate it so much. I hope our listeners enjoyed this topic and we'll talk soon.
That sounds great. Thanks again for having me.
Yes, of course. Thanks. Thank you so much for listening. I hope this episode has allowed you to approach the world with greater confidence in your own personal style. If you have any questions at all, feel free to reach out through email or inquiry form on the website. I hope you are all ready to go and get dressed up. I look forward to sharing more dressing up tips with you in future episodes. See you there.